Hello, welcome to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And let me adjust this little lens. There's really so much to talk about. And I feel like all the spiritual, mystical arts all end up with meditation and the chakra system, and then the chakra system ends up with meditation. So there's a lot of subjects I would like to talk about more in depth with the chakra system as a roadmap to higher consciousness. Um, and then I would also really like to talk more about being polarized, living in lack consciousness versus like abundant consciousness or even the middle ground, just beyond all that into oneness and wholeness. Uh, so, but then still meditation is the ticket because meditation can pull you out of duality, out of this whole right, wrong, black and white, me versus you type energy. And then this plays right into the chakra system because anything below the heart kind of goes into the realm of duality. Do we eliminate duality or do we work with it? We work with it. Being a non polarized being, as the Buddha said, the middle way, or the center prong on Shiva's trident, it's the middle way is neutrality. And meditation is neutrality. It's becoming clear. When you put black and white together, it makes gray. And gray is actually clear. So we have the absorption of all light, we have all light, and when you put the two together, it creates clear. Clear is the lens. And so whether you're wanting to develop your psychic ability and open up your third eye, learning how to be neutral and finding the yin and the yang and the yang and the yin, so understanding paradox and how to work with it, um, and being one with the Tao is how you open up your third eye. And meditation is a great practice. Being mindful, turning your senses inward. It all sounds very poetic and lovely and graceful, but kind of, as above, so below, as we ascend, we descend. As and so we get that like the alchemist star, that six-rayed star. Some people call it the Star of David, but I like to call it the alchemist star. So we have fire moving up towards spirit, and we have water, the feminine, moving down towards earth. And so it's really interesting. Uh, the center of it is balance, and you can work the elemental combinations through the center, which is balance. And so the six-rayed star in occult represents the person who has ascended. The five-pointed star represents the person who hasn't ascended, but it's also working with the mastery of the four elements in the physical realm. And so it's kind of like mind over matter, matter over mind. But once you get your higher consciousness on, you've awoke, you're now working with the six-rayed star. And that's a whole nother ball game. And those are just these are all metaphors for understanding the human experience of growing up and maturing, you know? So it depends upon what level you're playing the game of life at and how it serves you. So is it really any wonder that the six-rayed star, that alchemist star, is at the center of the chakra system? And it's actually at the center of mystical numerology. 6 representing the number of balance, 6 points, with the solar sun in the center. So, as above, so below, as within, so without. This is the essence, this is the mantra of Western mystery magic. If you apply the principles of as above, so below, as within, so without, this is the device. This is the axiom. These are the principles that help you transform, that help you become the alchemist or the wizard. Um, and so let's look at it through the lens of meditation. You know, as within, so without. We get the mirror principle, but we also get seeing within, looking inward. So the only way out is in. So when you start looking in, when you invert your forces or reorient them from the outward projection into the world, back into yourself, you find your power again. And so meditation is pretty much that, looking inward, being self reflective. So that would be like contemplative meditative practices. But when you start, so we put our focuses outward, usually on another person, a thing. But when you turn the focus inward, uh, you could say you're starting to practice meditation. When you're listening to the inner universe, the deity within, you accelerate yourself really fast and you could have a spiritual awakening and and really start to balance things. So your journey is your journey and the process is kind of non-linear. But after my heart chakra cleansing, reawakening, that was spontaneous and instinctual, um, I saw the world differently. I now saw the as above, so below, but I saw it through the lens of awakened versus unawakened. So many different levels to awakening. And so now I was looking at the boat metaphor differently. I saw other people are now sinking in the pond, They're at the bottom, living on the sand underneath the water, and that's life for them. Living in negative emotions, living in lack, living in want and need. So, needing validation, you start to feel good. You go, wow, I feel good about myself. Wanting validation from your partner, your family, and friends, wanting energy, wanting attention, uh, needing permission to be yourself. This is all outer, but when you have it within, it's not needed. So then the giving, I would say, is more honest. It doesn't come with a hook. It doesn't come with, it's not out of lack. So a lot of people give and receive out of lack consciousness. Hidden agendas, strings attached, and it's usually their emotions. And the reason why they decide to not like or like someone is because of the same thing, lack consciousness, polarity consciousness. Your values don't line up with my values that affirm who I am. So if I accept you, that makes me wrong. So I'd rather make you wrong and me to stay right and me to stay the character who I believe myself to be. So I don't want to be challenged. So I will fight aggressively to maintain this idea based in polarity instead of dropping all of it and realizing we're all one. And this whole fight doesn't matter because it's only about maintaining this artificial me who's made out of concepts, history, ideas, who graphs and adopts information and plasters it on like a collage and calls it good. This all happens because a person hasn't neutralized. Like I said, black and white make clear. When you see things clearly, you understand yourself as a non-form being. And so that's an awakening in itself. So I've had that awakening where all of a sudden I realized, like on you can realize these same lessons over and over again, but you can learn them at different depths and degrees. So I realized at a pretty heavy degree, I'm not my body. I'm awareness itself, and that cannot be destroyed. So I'm immortal. Like, crown chakra awakening, you know? And I would say that's a subtle one, you know, I am that I am. So I've had encounters with the I am. And I would say all of these awakenings have been facilitated through my meditation practice. And I've been doing a particular meditation practice for 20 years. I currently call it Heaven's Needle, but it's very, but we won't have to get into that right now. But that's been my personal vehicle and kind of like a personal way to facilitate my own evolution. So that's why I'm so passionate about meditation. And I feel I am in a place to talk about it. I mean, all I have is my experience to go on. So, but I can see how it's linking together, how becoming, it's hard to break out of polarity, right and wrong, me versus you, life and death, our team, your team, this whole tribal thinking. It's hard to get out of it unless you've had an experience of non duality, you know? Like we can play with polarities, and polarities create energy and create action and gets things going. That's great and all. But a lot of people don't hang out in that middle pillar of neutrality, of clarity, and the ability to embrace the light and the dark, like the Tao, and see the oneness in all things, that fifth dimensional level of awareness, perception, and being. Uh, and so the reality is we're just out of practice. Like, not a lot of people say, hey, you get to be it all. If, you are 0 point, you're the quantum, you're the singularity, plus you're the manifestation through time. You're all the parts and pieces. You are the ocean and you are the drop, and you get to experience yourself fully as the ocean in a drop and the drop in the ocean. So these are just different perspectives. And so neutrality is something we don't really practice and can be a game changer. It can be a giant I'm going to call it a silver key. It can be a giant key for you to unlock the doors of a bigger reality and a bigger understanding of yourself. So I feel like enlightenment can hit you like fully, but it can also just be like a blooming flower. Both ways, and all of it's valid, but just understand and recognize. I say appreciate it and then honor yourself and celebrate too. So in a weird way, it's not a goal, but it's a goal. you know, and so where are we going as a collective but awakening? And it doesn't need to be seen through a spiritual lens. It can be seen through some very basic principles grounded in reality that don't change you. Like when you're enlightened, it doesn't mean you're not you anymore. It doesn't mean you still don't crave and have your desires. You'll always want to fill your void, hence the whole reason why you incarnated. There's just different ways to fill your void. The journey, the character that you are, it's wonderful. But so appreciate where you're at, because things change and you won't be the same again. So savor it. But let's move on. So when I was really young, I was put in this room with all these kids in a church, and it was kind of like, we're going to just put these kids and babysit them here while everyone else goes to these classes in church. And I remember facing the closet doors that had these toys in it. And all of a sudden, I wasn't me anymore. Like I was more me. I had, I don't know if more of me entered myself or whatever. I was online, I was hooked up, I was awakened. I turned around and I saw all these kids acting like children, screaming and crying and brats. And the adult babysitters that were probably just really young teenagers, looking kind of adultish and acting like adults, authorities in charge, but they were also really young and immature. And then I remember pounding on the door and saying, "Let me out of here. Mom, don't leave me in here with all these children." And she was like trying to shut the door, wanting a break from her kids and coming up with excuses. And I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, I am like an adult in a child's body, and I'm surrounded by children of various levels. And that day in church was a nightmare. Just the whole experience was like chaos, the perspective, and then a planet full of people who are not awakened to their divinity. It wears on you, and you shut your eyes and you fall back asleep, sucked into the mass dream. And then, so multiple awakenings. I always call it like an eye shutter or blinking. Uh, some of us are fast asleep. Some of us are kind of dozing, kind of awake, kind of asleep. It's a slow, and then some of us we're just kind of awake, asleep, awake, asleep, awake, asleep. And then some of us are just wide awake. Boom. Full awakening. Total enlightenment. I don't sleep. It's all on every level. I'm a god. Boom. That's a lot. So it doesn't matter. But, as soon as you start to stir, as soon as you start to awaken, it's an inevitable process that you're going to finally eventually wake up from the nightmare. That can turn into a beautiful dream. So what does this have to do with meditation? Spiritual awakening happens when you mess around with meditation. Spiritual awakening happens if you mess around with yoga. It happens if you mess around with magical practices, mystical practices. So that is kind of like a danger, precaution. If you want to stay, if you're loving your life, the way you see it now, and you don't want it to change, don't practice meditation. Don't do yoga. Because kind of like once you're on the ride, you're on the ride. Once you've buckled in and it starts. And so that's really kind of what's happening. A lot of people might be buckled in and it hasn't started yet, but then it starts to start. You start to have mystical experiences, spiritual experiences, and then pretty soon you're on the ride. It's scary if you don't know you're on the ride. So I feel like a lot of the scary storytelling is people who are resisting. They're like, oh, I wanted to go to this movie, and oh no, I don't want to. We confuse excitement for anxiety and fear. So really a lot of what you're feeling is actually excitement, but then you translate it as fear and anxiety and danger. So then you resist, and then that accelerates. So fear is like an acceleration. It's like more pressure added to your excitement, and then it creates a perpetuating pressure that builds and builds and builds. And then you're like, I was so scared, frightened out of my mind. Whew. And then I wasn't, and it was fun. But if you don't ever get to then I wasn't and it was fun, what happens is the fear overrides all the systems and turns to pleasure in your body. Your body gets overloaded and goes, I can't deal with this. And you get flooded with the same chemicals, and then it turns into bliss. So this can happen even with contemplating meditation. Like, I remember I would just take myself on what if scenarios. I won't really explain it, but I remember I'd take myself to my personal edge, and then I would start to look over that edge. And then I remember just this, like, it was low level because I kind of like don't like to feel my feelings. Uh, but then I was like, you know what? Let's just feel what we're feeling. I'm like so scared for no reason. It was totally like not logical. And I just let myself sit in my feelings, which is part of what meditation is. You sit through your feelings, let them flow through you because you're a lens, because you're clear. Let your thoughts flow through you, and all the thoughts flow through you because you're a lens and you are clear because you are the lens. You are not the thoughts, you're not the feelings. This is the perspective you take. So I just sat in it, and then it turned out to be pleasurable. Like, it felt good, it was exciting. And I just transmuted my feelings. And you can do that with your thoughts. You can sit with these dark thoughts until they transmute. The danger is owning the thoughts and owning the feelings and owning the stories and owning the ideas and the ahas. Once you own it, it kind of sticks on you. Then you have to wash it off and get clear again. So that's the practice. And you get used to it, and then move on to different levels. So once you own something, you have an experience, kind of like in first person. It is you feeling that way. It is you thinking that way. But if you're in this other perspective, as these thoughts are moving through me, kind of they're a little bit objectified. I am the lens. Then you're not owning it in the same way. So your experience is different. You're like, wow, it's flowing through me. It's passing through me. Like, I am the ocean. All this life is in me and kind of like brought to you by me. I'm supporting it. But when it's all said and done, I'm just the ocean. So many like fun, creative, contemplative metaphors you can take yourself on with nature. Like, yeah. So expanding your perspective, your view, taking these like kind of like Merlin adventures, like we just did, can really actually awaken you. So meditation is not the only way towards enlightenment. Contemplating outrageous ideas like, I am the ocean and all this life is swimming in me and through me. Now you really understand how things are moving through you. Or I am a glass lens. So the mirror principle is really very trendy. And all these years about talking about mirroring and perspectives, there's not a lot of talk about the glass, that crystal. And when I was into neutrality, I was like, dude, I am the crystal. Like, the light can move through me. I may not be that source. And the rainbow can splinter, and I can experience these different colors, or I can be the one refracting. I'm showing the multidimensionality of all these things. But I'm just the channel. I'm just that middle pillar. I'm just the lens. This stuff, all of creation can channel through me because I'm just a piece of glass. I'm just sand, baby. And that really helped me, even to this day, understand being in witness, in the witness mode. And life comes and goes, but I remain. It might be the light show refracted through the lens, this glass that has been shaped into a diamond. But, the light show on the wall comes and goes, and the patterns change, and it's beautiful and it's fun. But I also get to be the glass. And I also get to be the light. So I'm all the parts and all the pieces in the theater. But when you shift your perspective and you get to be that, it's a cool experience. It expands your consciousness. It's kind of an awakening. So contemplating is a really great way. So there are some quotes, something like, the artist and the poet seem to have already been where I arrive. And so through your own, when you have that like artist, poet way of looking at the world and experiencing life, enjoying the nuances and the subtleties, and appreciating the things that a lot of people just skim by, you have a kind of like a magnified experience. And you see life not as rigid and as polarized and as linear and regimented. You see it through a different pair of eyes, where it's lucid, where it's a little softer, where it bends a little more, where time stands still and lingers and goes backwards and forwards and up and down, and it's lucid and it's malleable and it's breathtaking and it's inspiring, and it becomes a portal into the adventures of the soul and the adventures of the spirit, all here right now. But you do it consciously with sobriety, because choice is really awesome. Humans get to choose. And in all the freedom that exists, within that freedom, you get the power to choose. And then, so quantum physics backs this up. At the fifth dimensional reality of all possibilities, therefore, the only logical conclusion is you are free. And you are free to choose which perspective of infinite perspectives you wish to experience. So meditation, you can considering it. Well, this one was, I feel, a little bit more abstract. But really, with this few minutes remaining, I'm like, a lot of people are stuck below the heart chakra. In some of my other videos, I talk about playing the game of life or hitting below the belt. Like in sports, when you do a cheap shot, you kick someone in the crotch, even though you're boxing, that's like hitting below the belt. Anytime you're playing or relying heavily on your lower three chakras to manipulate for things that you want and feel like you need, you're playing at below the belt. If you're afraid to be alone, if you need to feel secure, if you need to have someone with you, that's below the belt. If all your gift giving and time spent is for validation and for security, because I don't want to be alone and I'm afraid to die, that's all below the belt, because it's validating your self-esteem, your security issues, which all come from lack consciousness. So the negative side of the lower three chakras is lack consciousness. And the reality is you can't access the heart chakra fully and the upper chakras fully until you get your lower chakras correct. And you do this through understanding lack consciousness, paying attention, how all your energetic and all your givings and all your relations are maybe being fueled by fear, by anxiety, which is lack, by poverty, I don't have enough, or I'm not good enough is saying I don't have enough of me. So once you really, now that we've shed light on lack consciousness, it starts clearing that up. Meditation is a support system, but not really designed for the support system because it's also the master surgeon. But you don't need surgery if you do your preventative health care, which would be self-reflection, playing, being creative, being a child again, letting go of your baggage. You can really let it go if you get out of lack consciousness. And so this is all really great, Onyx, but I need to have an experience of my infinite self, of being a formless being, of being something other than these polarities of love bombing, religious, happy, happy, which is gross, and then the opposite, negative, doomsdayer, negative. I don't want to participate in the world, and I want to be part of the problem. These are extreme polarities. And so the world at large is showing us extreme polarities, but they're never showing you the magic third door, the middle path, you know? And it usually gets colored one way or the other. If I want to be spiritual, then I have to give up pleasures. If I want to be spiritual, then I have to be better than everyone else. I have to be shine brighter. No. Neutrality, clear. Be a lens, be a crystal, be the channel. So we calm. So getting in the boat is, so you think about it, you get in a boat and it's like all wavy and stuff and wobbly because there's no solid foundation. A lot of people are still just trying to get in the boat. And so you settle your body, you settle your emotions, you settle your mind. Not like a stoic forcing it, like, please. We are like chill Buddhas here. So we know it's naturally gonna settle if we sit still. If our body learns to sit still, that's because we exercised and we did a little bit of stretching and stuff and we ate right, it's gonna have a more comfortable time sitting still. When our body sits still, our emotions start to settle and sort themselves out. The dust settles. And then when our emotions are settled, it doesn't kick up thoughts. And so emotions, thoughts, and body, all three need to work together. And so body, emotions, thoughts, emotions, body. Doesn't matter where you start. It's usually easier if you have a scheduled sit time. If you can't sit, I suggest going on a walk and it's a walk that you've done many times, because if it's new and there's other things you have to block out like traffic and it's like an obstacle course, you're engaging too much. What you want is a simple walk that maybe you've done a few times so you don't have to think about it. It can basically, your subconscious can just take you on the walk. You're like walking a dog, Then you can start to contemplate and relax, settle your emotions, and it's actually through rhythm. It's through the swaying